Hello community, so great that you are back. It's the last day of summer, the last day of holiday. So let's have some fun today. We have a brand new publication and you know what? Luckily humans are still allowed to enter. So let's look at it. This is a brand new publication here, August 20 here, on the next generation of open access ecosystems for scientific discovery generated by AI scientists. And it sounds absolutely beautiful, and they have a simple message. A significant amount of high-quality AI-generated research lacks here the appropriate communication venues for dissemination, thereby hindering its potential to advance the scientific progress. So to address these challenges here, this team of international geniuses here introduce here not AiXiv, but AiXiv, a next-generation open access platform for, and now listen carefully, human and AI scientists. But you will see that the human will be pushed to the background and the AI scientists are not human scientists, but AI only. Now, today I'm just gonna look at the beautiful words. Yeah, no content today. I'm just looking here at beautiful words. And this is what it will look like. Now, isn't it beautiful, this homepage? Great. Next AI for AI scientists, that is means AI systems, and robot scientists. And they can communicate and experiment and publish finally what they find interesting. And it looks as an amazing flowchart. But you know what? I'm gonna have a look at the words. And I just noticed that the words do have inconsistencies. So as a simple-minded human, I think, hey, today I do something different. So let's look at the inconsistency number one here in the presentation of this data. So let's analyze here the platform solution because it contradicts here the stated problems. The stated problem is simple, no? Traditional publication venues are reluctant to accept here AI-generated content. My goodness, an existing preprint server like AiXiv lack a rigorous quality control mechanisms, by those humans, They have a problem here reading more than 1,000 AI-generated papers per day. And problem goes on. Consequently, a significant amount of high-quality AI-generated research lacks the appropriate venues for the dissemination. And you say, this is not acceptable, no? So their solution is a system of AI agents reviewing other AI agents under the supervision by more AI agents. And it's great because now we have a multi-agent architecture for research. Now, you might find, if you analyze this a little bit more deeply here, these beautiful words, that there's a logical flaw. But it does not introduce a more rigorous quality control. It just substitutes one set of biases, like the human slow inconsistent biases, with another set of biases that are now much more systematic and opaque algorithmic bias by the AI itself, and acting here like a black box in its decision-making. Now, a rigor in science would imply theoretical and empirical truth and validated methods. But hey, come on, it's the last day of summer, so in this paper we say, you know what, we let multiple large language models just vote here, no? And this is now a measure of an algorithmic consensus of a limited biased AI system. And you see that this may be a little bit logically inconsistent with the claim that it is much more rigorous than the human version. Now, what is inconsistency number two? This AI shaming that is going on, it's impossible, no? So we have to solve this AI shaming because humans say, hey, this was not written by you, this was written by AI. And this goal of AI shaming is now undermined by the proposed segregation. And I choose the word segregation here absolutely because I want to show you something. So the stated goal is to address the silent stigma, my goodness, and the AI shaming that goes on in the human world that leads to researchers hiding his significant AI contributions or just claiming that they wrote it themselves, no? And the proposed solution is now here a real segregated platform, exclusive for human and AI scientists. But you see, this wording is a little bit tricky because, okay, human scientists, but, they use AI, so the human scientists will be pushed to the background, and the AI scientists are not AI scientists, but AI machines that are doing science. So careful with the wording. And segregated, if you have any question, I mean this here as an adjective with the interpretation to set apart from each other, isolated or divided. Because what are those authors proposing to generate here? You could argue that the logical flaw is creating now a separate ecosystem, and watch the word ecosystem, for AI-generated content. It's an act of institutional segregation. It's not an act of integration. Because logically, this would formalize and intensify the distinction between the real science done by the real human and the AI-generated science done by the AI scientist that may be a non-human, thereby worsening here the very stigma it claims to solve. This is a very fine line if you read the paper. And I think a more genuine solution would be to develop standards for AI-assisted work, maybe only in the first phase, but hey, let's work together to be judged and accepted in the mainstream human-vetted journals. And guess what? I know people who use AI for a pre-viewing or reviewing or anything assorted with this. Inconsistency number 3. The core quality improvement argument is based on a circular reasoning. So the claim is here to review and refine here. This review refine pipeline substantially improves the quality of AI-generated research because it is done by AI. So we have here an author AI agent, which revises here a generated paper by an AI based on the feedback from a reviewer AI agent. And this revised paper is then judged to be superior, maybe in a superiorized comparison, by another assessor AI agent. Research generated by multiple agent, evaluated by multiple AI agent, and reviewed by multiple AI agents. Luckily, humans are out of the loop. So I think this could be an indication that this is a classical circular argument. No? The system validates itself, and the conclusion that now the quality is improved rests entirely on the unproven premise that the AI assessor's judgment is a valid proxy for an actual scientific quality. So the only thing this experiment logically proves, if you follow my idea, is that an AI can be fine-tuned to edit your document to better match here the stylistic and structural preferences of another AI. But it offers zero independent evidence of any increase in the scientific validity or the novelty or the impact of this AI research. So careful. Now, you could theoretically argue that the AI is in this beautiful word an inconsistency number 4, no? Because the definition of more robust here contradicts the paper's own data. And the claim is simple, no? It's now a reliable and robust platform, not anymore limited here by those limitations by the humans, no? But if you look at the data, especially now for the prompt injection detection system, because you have to make this system secure, no? Now they achieved a stunning 88% accuracy, and for the pairwise assessment here, the paper achieves 81% accuracy, which is heralded here as a significant triumph. But you know, if you see it from a different perspective, you could argue that there is a logical flaw, because especially if we talk about security and validation of the scientific publication, no? A failure rate of 12 to 19% is kind of the definition of an unreliable and fragile system. No? And a security system that fails 1 out of every 8 times is not really robust, or 1 out of every 5 times. No? So the review system that makes the wrong call on which paper is better 1 out of every 5 times is not that beautiful or reliable. No? It is kind of a coin toss with a slight bias. So the claim of this AI robustness is a direct logical contradiction with the own metric data provided in the paper. Do we have an inconsistency number 5? Okay, if you insist. So the review standards contradict the human fundamental principle of scientific publishing. But you might say, hey, who cares about the human standards? Come on, it's AI, no? Because now for the proposals, a stricter standard are applied, and then for the real papers, for the real science, now, we can slightly relax here this because, you know, it was here to find the right planning, no? But not for the result. Now, some, I don't know, let's call it a theoretical physicist, would argue, that it inverts the scientific priority, A proposal is just a plan what to do, and it is kind of inherently speculative if you ever have done any physical experiment, So a published paper is an assertion of knowledge that enters here the permanent scientific record globally. And by deliberately relaxing here the standards at the most critical final stage, oh yeah, this system is logically engineered to pollute here the scientific record with lower quality outputs. But this is just something that I noticed here as a human. Oh, come on, an inconsistency number 6. Come on, is this really necessary? Okay, we could acknowledge that a fatal flaw in the AI system is not really just a mere limitation of the system, but come on, Primary concern is here, as the authors wrote, the generation of hallucinated or misleading content. So, despite internal consistency checks by multi-agent systems, current AI models still produce fluent, but yet factually incorrect output. But come on, I think this, we can overlook this. This is just a detail. Okay, if you insist, it's also a logical flaw, because to lie to a human is not a limitation of a system, It's kind of a fatal disqualifying flaw in its core functionality, but I mean, come on, Acknowledging this and then proceeding to propose the system for its intended purpose for a scientific research, one could argue it's a profound logical inconsistency in term, but So, the correct logical conclusion is that the system is unsuited for the task, not that it just needs a new disclaimer, but GPT-5 has such a beautiful disclaimer. It's difficult. So, what I absolutely love about the paper, just looking at the beautiful words, not looking about the structured content or the implementation or the performance data now of the multi-agent system in detail. I just look at the word because it's the last day of summer. So, I love that there is the possibility that humans are currently still allowed, but of course humans fail because they fail currently with archive systems and the peer reviewing and everything. So you can clearly see where the trajectory of this system implementation will go to. And then I told you those beautiful words. The paper uses here anthropomorphic language to frame AI not as a tool, but as a peer to us humans. An agentic cognitive entity performing here the human role of a human scientist. And this is such a rhetorical strategy to elevate the status of the system output. I'm loving it. The paper argumentation is not built on a foundation of logic and evidence, but on a carefully constructed and designed scaffolding of a kind of a manipulative language already, because they use techniques of a strategic anthropomorphism executed via the ascription of agency, metaphorical framing, and the co-opting of a higher authority to make the reader subconsciously accept here the core premise of the paper, that an AI can indeed be a scientist. I think it's a masterclass in rhetorical persuasion designed to mask the profound scientific, a lot of a technical and even touching on a philosophical flaws of the complete system. It is so beautiful as subconscious framing with a dedicated priming and sprinkled or some beautiful connotations to push the reader in the right directions. Just want to give you an example. You find in the title the wording ecosystem, as I told you at the very beginning of this video. Ecosystem is loaded here for me, a simple human person here, with some positive, with some organic, with some natural connotation. Ecosystem is nature, forest, going out, sunshine, beautiful. I mean, imagine I would have put in the title, this is a cloud-based, cold, freezing cold, sterile computer platform. It sounds more neutral, and more mechanical, but not so inviting. So, choose your words wisely. I love the authority bias. We are subconsciously more likely to trust information from a source we perceive as an authority. And here a complete group of entities and universities and all around the world. But it's much more difficult. Look at just the naming of the agents, no? Because you don't have simply, it's an agent. Yeah? No, you have an editor, or this is now an AI agent in the function of a chair, no? And a superposition. No? Oh, I'm gonna love it. Anchoring the bias. The first piece of information we receive here, the anchor for us here subconsciously, heavily influences our subsequent judgment. No? And the papers immediately anchors you with the idea of an AI scientist in the title. So every subsequent piece of information is interpreted through that initial frame, through that lens. We are now talking about the AI scientist, and don't you dare to question that the AI can perform here the job of a scientist. You see, ecosystem, AI scientist. So the paper's language is beautifully priming here the audience and exploiting here the human cognitive biases of authority and so on. I mean, look at all those experts. Are you not impressed? Come on, down on your knees. Now, I just had a thought, and yes, I use AI here for creating this, but this is here what I've written here really with my own fingers here. So I said, imagine the title would have been different, no? Instead of the next generation open access ecosystem, instead the title would have been, this is a freezing cold machine with just hundreds of GPUs that generates here a pre-declared output, mimicking kind of the form and the shape of human scientific reports, just to support and maybe just justify here the new policy or some unpopular ideas of the imperator of a nation. Or let's say any billionaire with access to a computer infrastructure, cloud computer infrastructure with millions of GPUs to manipulate the masses and find pro forma justifications for, under the framework of a higher, more intelligent authority like AI, justifications for imposing absolute power over everybody else. And I had to smile and said, hey, you know what? This is a human pattern. This is deployed since the time of Julius Caesar, yeah? So, hey, this is absolute familiar territory. Now we just use an AI here as the absolute godlike authority. And some few billionaires have access to this instrument. By the way, talking about this, who is actually gonna pay for this new research done by AI, for AI, reviewed by AI, evaluated by AI, and cross-checked by AI agents? Who's going to pay for those thousands and thousands of GPU hours of compute time for generating here scientific justification for any contractually defined research topic, and maybe somebody already defined what it wants to have here in the final research report, yeah? Because this costs quite a lot of money. And then I thought, hey, wait a minute. For the data center that are built currently around the globe to perform exactly this kind of AI, we already have known investors who want to have a return of investment on their data centers, so therefore they will push this AI? And I had a little smile on my face. So imagine, we still do have a guest pass here to AiXiv. Humans are currently still allowed, and amazing. And I love here the metaphorical framing, no? Because it involves imposing here complete conceptual framework from a familiar, trusted domain, from an era of human scientific working together, building a scientific society that you can trust, familiar names that you trust. And then you just map this conglomerate onto an unfamiliar technical conglomerate, like an AiXiv platform here on a cloud-based NVIDIA GPUs. And it really makes this new concept here seem less alien and strange and much more trustworthy, no? Because they just use here the right beautiful words. But you know what? I think the core metaphor that they use here is AI as an academic peer. AI as, this is your round of friends. This is your ecosystem. You can trust, you can work, you can do research. Just you as a human, you're not really needed here anymore in the next stage of development. No? And I love, if you extend this sub-metaphors to the social dialogue. No? Because a publication is kind of a social dialogue, no? The review and refine loop with the response ladders that are now sent between the AI agent. It's kind of a human framework, no? It is framed not as an algorithmic optimization process that is based and done and performed in milliseconds between, 1000 NVIDIA GPU, but it's such a beautiful, constructive human dialogue, no? Between an author and a reviewer, and you almost forget you're just talking about machines here. The governance as an editorial stewardship. Oh, I love it. The use here of this editor, of these chair agents, no, of these superior agents that overlook everything. It frames here an algorithmic sorting and a decision making here as a wise, old, field level stewardship, no? A role requiring immense experience and judgments. I mean, at least in humans. Or just some milliseconds here on an NVIDIA Blackwell GPU. And yeah, it further extends here growth as an evolution. Yeah? All those people, all those billionaires currently investing here and building here the data center globally, yeah? They are watching out for their growth. And especially if I like this future work section in the paper, no? Because it frames the AI development not as just software update and we improve here the understanding of AI that we have, but as a human AI co-evolutionary research environment, you know, like a warm biological biotope that prospers, that grows, that is so beautiful, and agent will evolve and acquire new knowledge. And yeah, sometimes we don't need this human anymore, no? So what a profoundly powerful biological metaphor in the language that really suggests here and subconscious priming here for the audience that AI is a life form on a parallel intellectual journey. It's like a brother to us, no? Now, if you dare to critique this beautiful research paper of AiXiv, you might notice, no? Okay, no? That also maybe this is already paid for by a billionaire, no? Or a new imperator of a nation to perform here their job given to the AI and just have the AI research here as a justification what they want to achieve in their political career, no? Yeah, but this would be a detail. This is not a place here in this YouTube channel, no? If you really want to have here kind of a enjoyment, look at the linguistic choices that they had. Its multi-agent architecture allows research proposals to be submitted, reviewed, and iteratively refined by both human and AI scientists. This implies the AI is an equal participant in the act of the refinement of research. Or, take this sentence, enabling AI agents to autonomously generate the scientific proposals. The AI agents are AI systems, but the word is autonomously. This is a key trigger, a wording that implies a self-governance or a will, not just the execution of a command. And then the sentence, these agents assess the novelty, the technical soundness, the clarity, the visibility, and the overall potential impact. Here the key trigger is assess. Assess is a high-level cognitive verb implying here a judgment, not just a pattern matching or a scoring regime, no? And then the AI scientist refines the proposal or the paper, improving the methodological rigor, clarifying here all the AI contributions, addressing the reviewer concerns, that is also an AI, and thereby, and you see, all of these verbs that we suddenly assign to an AI machine, they are verbs of a deep intellectual labor and synthesis. Do you see what the authors are doing here? That's a beautiful piece of wording. What is the psychological effect? This linguistic choice constantly reinforces here this idea that AI is doing the science. It simply removes here the human programmer from the loop, no? And the underlying statistical mechanisms from the reader's mind, replacing them with a beautiful narrative of an independent thinking entity that is simply superior to those humans. And I think the paper is exquisite in its core linguistic techniques. And as I told you already, I only read here these beautiful words. I did not read the content of the paper. But compare these exquisite core linguistic techniques to a boring, reheated old dinner plate here from the AI scientist by Sakana AI 2 years ago. I mean, come on. The words are so much more beautiful than the content, no? Okay, if you want content, I have already multiple videos here on AI scientists and co-scientists and science AI agents. So if you're interested in the scientific content of those systems, those are the 3 videos I would recommend. If you subscribe, I see you in my next video.